Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and I'm here with my co-host, Elliot Margolis, and we have as a guest this evening for the third time, Arthur Levine, the expert on all things fun and games. And before we get into the discussion about the theme of the show, Galaxy, Edge, and Star Wars and all that good stuff, Elliot has a few words of wisdom for us.
Yes, definitely a few words of wisdom. Today, July 30th, I believe it is, my son's new book came out, Trumping Obama. And so, naturally, I have to self-promote his book. If you like Trump, you need to read this book because it tells you what Trump has accomplished in getting rid of Obama's legacy. If you don't like Trump, you need to read this book to find out why Obama's legacy was not good and what Trump is doing is good. So this book, available on Amazon now, not a lot of money. I highly recommend it. And now we can go back to the show.
Well, back to the show, yeah. As I mentioned, we've had Arthur as our guest 3 times. The first time through was just an introduction to how we got from a grassy field to theme parks and roller coasters and all that good stuff around here. Then about 2 or 3 months ago, I guess it was, you stopped by and told us about the coming attractions at Disney, this theme park they were adding for $1 billion apiece, a spectacular one, Galaxy's Edge. Mm-hmm. And you painted the picture of that one as very intriguing. So I guess the question is, how did it turn out? Did it really show up like you anticipated? Good, bad, same?
Well, I did have a chance to go to the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which has opened in California. It opened at the end of May. And so I got to go out there and actually experience it. And I got to say, it did live up to the hype. And you can definitely see where that $1 billion was spent. It is a transportive, immersive land that has very wide paths and has just incredible theming. You feel like I didn't feel like I was in Disneyland when I went to this particular land. It feels wholly different from everything else that's going on there, and in many ways it is very different. And I'd like to sort of talk about some of the ways that it is different to sort of illustrate what it is that they're trying to do, what Disney's trying to do.
Before you get too deep into that, what do you characterize as, quote, Disneyland? That what people normally would expect from Disneyland, so that when we talk about why Galaxy's Edge is different, there's a gap in there. Could you explain what the
well, the last time I was here, we kind of talked about the evolution of amusement parks and then how Disney, in particular, revolutionized, pioneered this idea of a theme park, which is not just about rides and thrills, but is about telling stories. And it's sort of about taking his background in the movies and telling three-dimensional stories in a physical space. And so Disneyland has places like Adventureland and Fantasyland where it's themed to different sort of general themes. And you can go to Adventureland, for example, and go on the Jungle Cruise, or you can go to New Orleans Square and go on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride or the Haunted Mansion. But you still feel like you're in Disneyland. There's still sort of you see balloons and you see popcorn and you see Disneyland branded items, and you kind of get this, you know that you're in Disneyland. Mm-hmm. When you go to Galaxy's Edge, however, you're on a different planet. You've been transported to the planet Batuu. And you won't see anything there that will remind you that you're at Disneyland. If you're looking for a Disneyland t-shirt, you're out of luck, because only the kinds of things that would be available for sale on the planet Batuu are available there. Likewise, you can't buy a hamburger or French fries or the kinds of things that you can get in the rest of Disneyland. You can only get things that would be for sale on the planet Batu. And there are many other ways that it is different. For one thing, Walt Disney kind of famously, when they were designing the Haunted Mansion, the original idea was to make this place look as foreboding and rundown and ramshackle as possible. And he said, absolutely not. This is going to be like the rest of Disneyland, pristine and beautiful, always well maintained. And so instead you have this old Victorian mansion. The inside of it is haunted, and you get this wonderful story, but from the outside, the facade, it's beautiful. Well, they kind of broke Disney's rule inside Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because you see schmutz here and there. Elliot will appreciate that, I think.
Okay, for us other people, translate that one.
You see evidence of dirt, and you see a patina of, you know that it's been lived in. You see exposed wires. You see paint that may not be completely...
some of the pictures you sent around, I noticed there's one that shows a wall, and the wall is coming apart, and
there's a crack in the wall. That's right.
Well, there's a big piece missing.
Right.
Like it fell off. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of things you'd never see in Disneyland, but in the interest of authenticity and to really make you feel like you've gone somewhere different, this is one of the ways that it's quite different. Another way is that there are no signs anywhere, because there would be no signs on the planet Batu. If you want to go to Oga's Cantina, which is a place where you can go and get a drink and get some snacks and rock out to DJ Rex.
Is that the cantina from Star Wars?
Well, it's not the cantina from Star Wars, but it's similar to the cantina that was depicted in Star Wars. But there's no sign above it that says Oga's Cantina. Instead, it's in the Star Wars language of, I think it's called Arabesh. And so you just kind of have to know it's there. I mean, you can look at the guide map that you were given, but there's no arrow saying, you know, cantina this way, because there just wouldn't be on the streets of Batu. So Disney does have a phone app that you can download, and it transforms your phone into what's known as a data pad. And one of the features of that data pad is you can point it at these signs and other information that's in this foreign language, and it'll translate it for you. So you can point it and it'll say Oga's Cantina, but otherwise you'd never know it's there. The same thing with the stores and with the ride and with everything. In the rest of Disneyland, you know, there are signs that say Pirates of the Caribbean and so forth. So that's another way that it's quite different. The cast members, that's what Disney calls the people, the employees at the park. The cast members are free to pick and choose their costumes and their outfits. They don't all wear the same thing like they do in the rest of Disneyland. And they stay in character to a startling degree. So, for example, it's as if they lived on the planet Batu and you're visitors on their planet. I had a friend who lost his cell phone on the ride that's at Star Wars, and he was looking for his phone. So he went up to a cast member and said, "I lost my phone on the ride." And they said, "You lost your phone? What's a phone?" Because on their planet they have no. So he had to play this game. And it got kind of frustrating for him because he really wanted to get his phone back. He said, "Oh, do you mean a data pad?" And so they sort of went through this whole exercise where he was going to stay in character no matter what. He was able to finally get his phone, but the point is that it's not, you know, Joe from Kissimmee who goes to high school at the local high school. It's this guy who lives on the planet Batu who stays in character no matter what. Another way that it's different. In the rest of Disneyland, there are characters everywhere. You can meet Mickey Mouse, obviously. You can meet Minnie Mouse. You can meet Peter Pan, all the characters. They'll stop. They'll pose for photos. They'll sign autographs. That is not the case at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You will see Chewbacca. You will see Rey. And you will see Kylo Ren and some of the other characters from Star Wars, but they're not going to stop and pose for photos. They're very purposely walking through the land from point A to point B. And if you stop them, they may interrogate you and ask you, are you a member of the force? Are you a member of the First Order? Are you a member of the Resistance? They'll talk to you about plots that they may have heard about and ways that you might be able to help them, but they're not going to stop and sign an autograph. You can't form a line to meet them and take a photo. So these are just some of the somewhat subtle and less subtle ways that Disney has taken storytelling to just the next level, and it is really to quite an astonishing degree how different this is. So, in my estimation, it did live up to the hype, and it's every bit as grand scale and as kind of amazing as I thought it was going to be.
If you said to them you're part of the Resistance, what's going to happen?
It depends who you're talking to. If you're talking to Kylo Ren, he wouldn't be too pleased. And he'll probably have his stormtroopers around, and they may maybe want to whisk you away. I mean, they're not going to do anything that would cause you any actual harm. But of course, if you said you're a member of the Resistance to Rey or to Chewbacca or somebody who's sympathetic to the cause, then they'll probably high-five you and put their arm around you and talk about ways that you can help them. So. These are the things that go on at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
One of the neat things you said in advance of the show was a short video of a walkthrough. So could we roll the video, and could you give us your version of what the hell are we looking at?
Okay, great. Well, it's well after May 29th, so I think we're okay. So here, this gives you a sense of the grand scale of the land. This is unlike other parts of Disneyland where the paths can be quite narrow and things are sort of jammed in. You can see that there's just lots of room to move. Here we see the Millennium Falcon, all 100 feet of it, and 30 feet off the ground. There are just spaceships sort of casually parked. There's another one. You see these X-Wing fighters, and they don't really serve any purpose. They're just kind of there for show. I believe that's Oga's Cantina, yes, and here we are inside Oga's Cantina. If you saw in that other shot outside, there was no sign that said you were in Oga's Cantina. This is an extremely popular spot. There's Rex, DJ Rex. He used to be on Star Tours. He's now been repurposed as a DJ at Oga's Cantina. You can get drinks there. Don't ask for a rum and Coke. They won't know what you're talking about. But if you want to get some Star Wars themed drink, they're more than happy to make it for you. Here we are again seeing the Millennium Falcon, and you can see the rock work is just so impressive. Now we're inside. Maybe we can stop it here. That is Hondo Ohnaka, and we are inside the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run ride. Hondo Ohnaka is this incredible next-generation animatronic. He is a pirate of sorts. He's a man of questionable ethics, and he happens to have the Millennium Falcon parked in his spaceport, and he is recruiting you, the guest, to become part of his crew to transport a payload that may or may not be legit, yeah. And so that is the excuse for you to get into the Millennium Falcon and pilot the Millennium Falcon on this adventure. And we can keep going here. And so here we are on in one of the bays on the Millennium Falcon. There's the hollow chess table, and here we are in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. Somebody the pilot on the right gets to make the jump to hyperdrive, which we just saw. And so there's a crew of 6 people. There are 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers on the ride. And here we are back in Black Spire Outpost. I think we're seeing one of the, here we are at the milk stand where people are drinking blue milk and green milk. And again, you can see the rock work and the architecture. It's just incredible.
Looks ancient, yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of vaguely Middle Eastern, but from another world. And as I said, it's transportive. And again, you won't see any signs. Here we are in the marketplace, and rather than being gift shops, they're just sort of stalls. This is a water fountain with a beast that kind of lives in the sewers that will trick you sometimes as you're trying to take a drink. Here we are inside one of the shops. I believe this is Toydarian Toy Maker. This is Katsaka's Kettle, where they sell kettle corn that's both sweet and spicy. So again, the food is nothing like you would find anywhere else. Here we are at the marketplace again. And this is the creature stall. And you can see nothing is wrapped in plastic at the stores. Nothing looks like a traditional store that you might find at a theme park. Everything looks handmade. And here we are in Savvy's workshop, where people are making their own lightsabers. This is one of the signature experiences at Galaxy's Edge. Here are the stormtroopers that are walking around and looking a little bit menacing, and they will interrogate you. They stand on roofs, and they're kind of providing security and sort of have a fascist bent to them.
This particular scene I like, where he's actually asking the kid for identification.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And they'll press you. And there's Kylo Ren making an appearance. And the stormtroopers are ever present everywhere, and with their guns loaded. Maybe we can stop it here. I find this fascinating. This is what I consider to be the best food stand at Galaxy's Edge. It's called Ronto Roasters. And again, I said there's no food there that you would recognize from anything on Earth. So what we see here is a smelter droid, and he has been programmed to turn the spit of this Ronto beast, and above him is a modified pod racing engine that's providing the heat, and he is kind of barbecuing this Ronto meat. And next to him, there's a stand called Ronto Roasters where you can get a Ronto wrap. And you get that Ronto meat with a sausage, and they put the spicy sauce on it, and they have a cooling slaw, and it's delicious. It looks like and tastes like things that you had never experienced before. But the whole show where you see the droid making roasting the Ronto and then getting to eat it, it just kind of takes you to a different place. So I think we're almost done with the video, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe we can keep it going here. There's a close-up of the smelter droid operating that spit, and there's the Ronto. And there they are getting the Ronto wraps. There it is. Delicious, absolutely delicious. And as I said, the stormtroopers are ever present there. And there are droids just sort of casually strewn about in corners. You can use your data pad, if you download it to your phone, to activate them and download information from them. This is the Droid Depot, where you can build your own droid, starting at $100 and going up from there.
Yeah, they don't charge enough when you go in there. But my question would be, it looks fairly sophisticated. It also looks like food that little kids wouldn't eat. So the question is, now I'm going in February with my two of my grandchildren who are 5 years old or almost 6 at the time. Do they belong in a place like this, or do we sort of split up and let my kids go there and I take the grandchildren to one of the other areas?
No, I think kids would love Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This is Doc Ondar. He literally speaks out of the side of his mouth. It's Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, and you can barter with him. He's an animatronic character. You can barter with him to get the price down on items that he sells at his Den of Antiquities. And the cast members there will interpret for you because he speaks in a different language, but it's kind of amazing. But Elliot, you asked me if little kids would enjoy Galaxy's Edge. I think they would, with the one possible exception being the food. The food is not particularly kid-friendly, although there are some items that I think they would enjoy. I believe there's a macaroni and cheese item that they've disguised as something else there. But for the most part, no pizza, no chicken fingers, no hamburgers, none of the things that you would expect to see at a theme park. But just outside of Galaxy's Edge, there are plenty of places to get those kinds of things. But if you want to have an immersive experience that a Star Wars geek would just go crazy over, this is the place to go.
How long do you have to go through this park to get that transition from Disneyland's usual stuff to this new world? Is there something that hits you right away, or do you have to wander around a while?
Yeah, no, it's pretty immediate, I would say. At Disneyland, anyways, the one at Disney World hasn't opened. That won't open until the end of August. But at Disneyland, where I've been, you enter, one of the entrances is from Frontierland, and you walk into a cave, and you come out the other side of the cave, and it's very dark in the cave, so it kind of cuts off your vision. You come out the other side of the cave, and you just see this wide expanse, and you're immediately kind of taken in with the what a cinematographer would refer to as the wide shot.
Yeah.
You know, you get to see the big picture, and then as you go closer and you see sort of the medium shots and the close-ups, everything kind of hews to the story and the theme, and you're very quickly immersed into this new land that Disney has created.
It's fascinating. I think that, you know, makes me want to go. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. Just, I don't know why, but I'm not. Makes
So
me
you're
want
the
to go.
one.
I'm the one. But I want to go.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to be, it helps if you're a major Star Wars fan or even a casual fan, but if you know nothing about Star Wars, I think you'd still have a great time. And Star Wars is such a part of popular culture that I would imagine, even not knowing much about it, you recognize stormtroopers. And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so...
I mean, I've seen a couple of the movies, but, you know, I'm sort of like it's a small world type of approach, you know, because that's what when I went, I took my kids to It's a Small World and other places like that.
Yep.
And, this didn't exist then.
Right, right.
So, I mean, you know, my vision of Disney World doesn't include this.
Right, well...
But I think that'll change.
You were saying that before the show started, it's been about 30 years since you've been to Disney World. You're going to find that it's radically changed. I mean, just radically transformed. And this is an example of sort of the pinnacle or the ultimate ways in which the park has changed. But there have been incremental changes through the years, both in terms of the way that attractions are built and presented, but also in just sort of the sheer breadth and volume of things that there are to do there. It's kind of amazing. There are 4 theme parks. There are 2 water parks. There's an enormous place, an entertainment and dining and retail complex called Disney Springs, and it's just, I mean, you can easily spend a week at Disney World and probably not see everything.
Yeah.
Well, the other issue that came out is there was anticipated tremendous crowds, and Disney came up with a lot of different approaches to limit the time in the theme park and how many people could be there, and you have this little app on your phone that tells you your time is up to move on because somebody else is going to take over. Did all this turn out to be necessary, or is it...
It's funny you should mention about, you know, your time's up. Originally, the plan was that you had to make advance reservations online, and then you had a 4-hour window at which you could be inside Galaxy's Edge. And I'm not sure if they did this much, but they actually had the ability for the stormtroopers with their guns and so forth to come over to you and say, you need to leave now, and actually escort you to the exit. But to answer your original question, George, yes, Disney was anticipating enormous crowds and thought that the demand for this would be through the roof. Well, demand has been strong, but in a simple case of supply and demand, I think Disney may have slightly overestimated the demand and throttled back a bit too much. They did things like require this advanced reservation system, which is no longer in effect.
But it does apply to the rest of the park, though.
No.
Okay, explain again. what that system is for the rest of the park.
I think you're probably referring to the Fast Pass system, where in Florida you can make advance reservations and actually ride reservations in advance. In California, you still can only make them the day of. None of this is applicable inside Galaxy's Edge, nor will it be in Florida. You just have to kind of get in line and wait.
Yeah.
But as I said, in California anyways, the experience so far has been that the enormous crowds never really materialized. And unlike Florida, California has a lot of local residents who go to the park. Florida is more of a destination, but in California, there are quite a few, many annual pass holders, people who buy a pass and visit the park frequently. Well, Disney raised the prices and implemented these different levels whereby for the period that Galaxy's Edge was opening, only the people who spent the most money on the very most benefit-laden pass would be able to get in. As a result, not only weren't there the enormous numbers of people at Galaxy's Edge, the rest of Disneyland and the adjacent park, Disney California Adventure, has been very, very quiet, sort of eerily so. But that's going to change over time as these, as the annual pass holders enter into different periods where they can go, and also when the second attraction, Rise of the Resistance, opens, which has not opened yet. Only one of the rides is open, and that's the Galaxy's Edge, the Millennium Force Smuggler's Run ride is the only one that's open now. So, all that being said, because Disney's caught a little flack for like, hey, where are all these crowds you were talking about? It opened in late May, on May 31st, and as of July 18th, they welcomed their 1 millionth guest to Galaxy's Edge.
That's not too shabby.
No.
If you do the math, that figures out to a little over 20,000 per day. So all things, so we have to look at this, in relative terms. When I say there's not enormous crowds, we're still talking about 20,000 people a
That's
day.
half the city of Beverly.
That's right.
In 5 words or less, when is the other ride going to open?
I don't know if I can answer that in 5 words or less, but in early December, December 10th, I believe, is the date it's going to open in Florida first, and then in the middle of January it will open in California. So the land itself will open August 29th in Florida, which most of the people in Beverly and the surrounding areas go to Florida. They don't go to California. The park is already open, or the land is already opened in California, but the second ride, Rise of the Resistance, which is the one that Disney is saying will be the sort of the real headliner, that won't open till January.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, our time is up.
Okay.
And I'm sure there were more questions to ask, but we'll have to have you back again. It's fascinating. Really appreciate you coming.
It's my pleasure.
And I'm just going to hold up the book, but I won't say anything because we don't really have time for that. But thank you for coming, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Thank you.